And hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I am your host, Coach Elex. With me, my wonderful co-host, not here. I don't know where he is. I hope you guys can hear me.
You can't hear me?
No, we could not hear you.
Well, I am Stephen Frederick Masick, and I am here.
I So Stephen the Medium, my husband and my wonderful co-host, is here. So for the next hour, you're gonna have Steelex with you. And today, Stephen, we have an amazing show. Actually, a show that is perhaps one of the most meaningful shows for me, and I know for you as well, because this is our opportunity to really celebrate Pride Month, which has been the month of June. So today's show is, we call it The Fight for Pride, how respect and determination can transform a community. What do you think about that, Stephen?
I love it. I love the theme, but I got to be honest, I even more so love the guest that's here.
That's right. So you just, created the opening because we have an amazing guest. He's a friend. He's somebody that Stephen and I met him through Stephen and through the documentary Lady of the Dunes, but he became a really, really good friend, him and his husband, Brandon. And we love him. So Steve, I'll tell you a little bit about Steve in a few minutes. But before we get into the show itself, anything that you need to report, Stephen, on the home front?
Yes, I have a big thing to report. Something that was very tragic to me that happened today, that right before the show started, Elix came up to me and said, "You have to go to the lobster trap to get seafood." Now that's tragic to me. Not tragic because I don't love seafood. I love seafood. The tragedy is, how do I pick seafood? How do I do anything with food? I think you need to call ahead and just get it all packaged and set, and I'll just go in and pay for it. How's that?
So let's give some context, because I really have the real tragedy here. So some context for you guys is, we have a friend coming for dinner later, and it's a friend that is actually, Stephen knows her. This is my first time meeting her, and those who know me, I don't do half-ass anything. So, and I'm the one. What? Yeah, I'm the one in the kitchen preparing and really making sure that we have everything organized. And of course, I'm working. I'm leading a training this morning. I have my radio show today. So I'm running myself ragged. So I said to Stephen, just go to the lobster trap. It's right around the corner. We love getting fish, the same day that we're going to cook it. And they have a fabulous seafood market. And, that'll help, because I can, do the things I need to do. What he says to me is the real tragedy. He says, with a serious face, he says to me, "But what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Are you for real?" Like, yeah, he just looked at me. "But what are you doing?" "Oh yeah, let me just now also go to the lobster trap to get fish, and or see whatever's fresh, which is really what we get." But yeah, he was really serious, and honestly, that's the real tragedy of this conversation. So,
well, good luck with that. Good luck with what I come back with. I offered to go get the dessert, but no, you needed to do that. So the simpler thing I could have done, the more difficult thing of picking fish, and I've been with you, and how many slices do you want? Is this big enough? How many does that serve? I have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Nothing.
So
None.
you know what I should do? I should come along, turn my video on, and record, because that will absolutely be an episode of Steelix the series. That would be something to be seen.
That would take up a whole episode.
I actually would love to see what that looks like, because I do know that you are completely serious. It's almost like, our first episode, and people thought that you weren't serious when you said, I don't know the difference between a bread knife and a regular knife. And people really thought that, oh no, he's got to be kidding me. No, he wasn't kidding. He does not know the difference between a bread knife and a regular knife. So,
but you know what I do know? I know how to pass the bar exam on the first time. That's what I do know.
Yeah, well, you do have some smarts.
Some.
Yes, and you are cute, so I'll give you that. But anything else going on, Stephen? Anything else? Oh my God, you're handsome. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else going on?
Thank you. Yes, I have I finished my introductory mediumship class this past Wednesday. So yay for me, yay for the students were amazing. And I'm just so psyched that I have that completed. It was an amazing trip. And I also had a meeting yesterday with a new virtual assistant that I am crossing my fingers that it goes well. We're going to do like a 30-day trial basis, and I have a lot for her to do to update my website and just a lot of stuff that's going on. So that's also really, really exciting.
That's very, very exciting. So I'm excited for you.
No, I definitely am, and I got to tell you the whispers in a note that I offer on my website, they're just, as soon as I get them up on my website as available, they're gone. They're just taken. It's crazy.
That's because you're really good, and honestly, I think that the whisper in a note is just an exceptional gift for anyone. But in particular for those people who may be sort of like being introduced to the magic of medium, being with a medium, or they don't know what being with a medium is, it just gives them a really good, I don't know, for me, it looks like it's a really good way of introducing what it is, because it's almost like having new life.
Well, it is. It's a great introduction, but it also is amazing for people who just miss their loved ones, whether they've been to mediums a lot of times or no times. It's just a tangible note that you get to hold in your hand and actually see what was transcribed from your loved one in spirit on this note, and get to hold it, frame it, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your bureau. It doesn't matter. It's. I think that's the difference.
Well, how awesome is that?
Yeah, right? It is.
And I think, and honestly, I also say that, we often talk about all the bad things that the pandemic brought to us, but we dismiss all the good things the pandemic brought to us. And among the many good things is, a lot of things became virtual, and you have this now ability to do these virtual readings, and people actually walk away with a recording of the reading, and that is absolutely fabulous, I think.
It is. I mean, certainly there are people that still want that in-person touch, but there's a lot of people that I read that are not local or not even in this country that call the radio show, that just reach out to me for readings or book readings. So it's a nice alternative to just being in person and being able to access hundreds of people not close to me
from all over the world. But let's talk a little bit about today's show, because again, we've been celebrating Pride for the entire month of June, and for I think one of the biggest misconceptions, Stephen, especially for anyone that is not part of the LGBTQ community, is that Pride is all about, showing your flags and, being loud and, being outspoken. But Pride is a lot more than just that. And, I often think that, celebrating Pride is really about survival. It's about, claiming our seat at the table. So it's a big, big deal. And, but it all, I don't think that we can talk about Pride without really talking about, the history of the Stonewall uprising, right?
Right.
So for those of you who are listening and who know a little bit about Pride because you have friends or you maybe you have a family member who is gay, lesbian, or bisexual, it's been 53 years since the uprising of the Stonewall in New York City. That's in the Greenwich Village. And that was an event that it's really widely considered to be the catalyst for the LGBTQ civil rights movement. Stonewall really was a filthy dive bar, and really the City Human Rights Commission had ruled in 1966, 3 years before the uprising of at Stonewall, that the bar could no longer refuse to serve gay people. So gay bars were technically legal in New York City in 1966, but they were often raided by agents of the state liquor authority, which had a regulation against serving homosexual in bars. So it was almost like one of those cracks that they took advantage of. And, the idea was that, they claimed that they were disorderly. And Stonewall really became that catalyst for these movements. So, but just to give you a perspective, let's go back to 1969. There were no rainbow flags. There were no pride parades. Gay men, lesbians could be fired from their jobs at any time for any reason, simply because they were gay or lesbian. They could have their apartments or their children taken away from them simply because they were gay. In the eyes of the world, they were perverts, pedophiles, mentally ill. And sadly, there's a lot of people that still hold on to that belief. It wasn't exactly illegal, that is, to be gay, but it was close. Homosexual acts remain illegal in every state of this country except Illinois. Police raids on gay bars were very common, and bars where gay people experienced their second-class citizenship, if you will, mostly overly, if you will. And in New York City, masquerading as a member of the opposite sex was a crime. So during the raid of Stonewall in 1969, resisting together, shoulder to shoulder, was really a turning point for the LGBTQ community. So, Stephen, what does Stonewall signify for you?
Well, I don't have enough time in this show to give that sort of definition. Anytime I think about Pride, or anytime during the year, because I don't necessarily just think about it in June, as a medium also, and being able to connect to people who have crossed over, I will always go back to exactly what description you were just giving, the people that live that, and the people that are no longer here, and the people that did everything they needed to do to get us where we are now, that you and I are able to marry. So there's just a lot, and I also like to go back even before Stonewall, because there were groups in the 50s, albeit not as big as what happened with Stonewall, but still there and still fighting and knowing that we wanted to be, queers wanted to be treated equal, and it's just amazing. It's a bow to all our brothers and sisters in the gay community that have done everything they needed to do for us to be where we are.
And it's a reminder, and I remind this of many people in our community that often forget, especially the younger. The younger people in our community. If not for those individuals, we wouldn't have the rights that we have today. So yes, absolutely, it's a bow to all of them. But Stephen, we do have to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to have a fabulous guest, somebody that we both love and adore, Steve Katsourenis, who is the chair of the Provincetown Board of Health. He's a business owner and an entrepreneur. And we know Steve, and we know his husband, Brandon. And Steve is an outspoken advocate for the LGBT community. And he lives close to us right here in Provincetown. So we're excited to have him. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will introduce you to our friend Steve Katsarinis. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I am your host, Coach Elix. With me, my wonderful co-host,
Steven, the medium, is here.
Steven, the medium. So you got Steelix for the next hour. But in addition to the two of us, today we are celebrating Pride Month, and our show is all about the fight for pride, how respect and determination can transform our community. And we have a wonderful, wonderful guest, somebody that both Steven and I adore, love, and adore. Stephen Katsarinis, who's the chair of the Provincetown Board of Health. He's a business owner. He's an entrepreneur. Him and his husband, Brandon, now own an award-winning restaurant in Provincetown. Yay for them. And two other fabulous businesses, including really a fabulous in P-Town. Welcome, Steve, to our show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with both of you. I have so much respect for what you do with the show and in your lives generally, and the diversity of your lives. And what a great thing for you to present this discussion about pride.
And listen, and we could not have a better guest than you. We love and adore you. I know that you've been part of this movement, Fight for Pride, all of your adult life, and you chose to settle right here in Provincetown to start a business that really has changed, your life and your husband's life based on what you share with us. Why Provincetown, Steve?
Well, we lived in Washington, D.C. before, and we're in, mostly corporate type jobs. I'm an attorney by training. My husband is a chef, was working at Whole Foods markets, and we wanted to change our lives. We had felt like we had accomplished everything we were going to accomplish in those roles. And we were looking for something different. And Provincetown was a great choice for us because we got to both, when we met, we didn't know that we both had a dream of owning a B&B. And we were actually sitting in Santorini, and I'm half Greek, so I had taken Brandon to see Greece, one of my homelands. And we were sitting in Santorini at a B&B that was actually delivering terrible customer service. And we said, we could do such a better job. And I said, I've always wanted to own a B&B. And Brandon's jaw dropped, and he looked at me and he said, I didn't know that. We've been together about 3 or 4 years at that point, and he was like, I didn't know that. I've always wanted to do that too. So when we got home, we started to look at it. And it's easy when you have a dream to sort of find comfort in having that dream, but never actually pursuing it, never actually making it happen in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that for people. But for us, we decided that we needed to actually make it happen. And so we started looking, and we looked at a number of places. And Provincetown just jumped out as a place that we had both visited and loved. We had a lot of connections here. But to us, Provincetown represented the place where gay rights really lives and really vacations. And so it made a lot of sense, and we found our inn one night. We were both in bed. I think I was dozing, and all of a sudden Brandon sat up and said, oh, my God, I found it. And we were looking at this listing of what became our inn, the 8 Dyer Hotel, and it was perfect. And so within 6 months, we owned the inn and had left our jobs and were innkeepers in Provincetown.
Yeah, and you're doing a fabulous job. And by the way, I love listening to what you said because as an executive coach, somebody who works with very high-performing leaders who, we all have dreams, right? The difference between the high-performing leaders and somebody else is that the high-performing leaders take decisive action in making that a reality. And I love hearing you say, listen, we both have a dream and we are doing something about it. Nothing wrong not to do something, right? But you decided to take decisive action, and that's really awesome. Now, let me ask you this. So before you came on, Stephen and I gave a little brief history on Stonewall because I think it's, for me anyways, when I am talking to people outside of our community, the LGBTQ community, they often think of pride as it's a flag or it's some outrageous celebration, or we're too flashy, or we just want to jam some idea down somebody else's throat. But pride has nothing to do with any of that. Really, pride is much bigger, for me anyways. And of course, you can't talk about pride without talking about the Stonewall movement. But what does pride represent to you, Stephen?
Well, to me, and I am sort of by nature politically inclined person. So even as a child, I was very interested in the news and politics, and it's been for me an interesting journey of having my political views evolved throughout my life. And I will say that becoming aware of my sexuality, and being able to say it to other people when I was in my early 20s and first moved to Washington, D.C., was, for me, an anchor point in my life where I began to say, I'm gay, and gay people don't have the same rights as everyone else, and we should have the same rights as everyone else. And, of course, at the time that I came out, AIDS was the largest thing looming over our community, gay men particularly, but it was the curse that would ultimately wipe out a generation of gay men. And so for me, pride was about political equality, and still is today, because I think we're facing challenges, and I think we've seen the Supreme Court looks willing to overturn established precedent. And if that's the case, then all of our rights are at risk. And pride is a way that we can recommit ourselves to the notion that LGBTQ people are equal and deserve equal rights in our society. So that's what it is for me. And of course, there's tendrils. And, I remember early in my life seeing very unusual and different types of expressions of LGBT life and sexuality, and just thinking, oh my God, I love my community. So it's that too, right? I mean, we're not all identical, and I think we know that, but maybe the outside world's not always obvious that we're not all identical. But I love my people, and when I see them, this is a month where the whole country aggressively or tacitly acknowledges gay people. It's a great time for us to show the diversity of the community and for all of us to say, I love my community.
That's fabulous. Stephen, you have any questions for Steve?
Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm great. It's good to hear your voice.
It's good to hear your voice, too. And, when you were just talking about that, all I was thinking of is thank God for Elix and thank God for someone like yourself, Steve, that would be willing to come on here, because exactly like the what just emanates from what you're saying is that the one person or two people or hundreds of people that are listening to this that just didn't have that perspective of our community or pride, or somebody who is an intelligent individual like yourself, who's an attorney, who is really participating in the community to move our community to move it forward. It's just such a great feeling to know that people are listening to this live and are going to listen to this recorded. And when it goes on a podcast, I'm so excited you're here now, and I'm so excited about the future for people listening to this.
Excellent.
So, you know what? There's plenty more I want to talk to you about. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to carry on the conversation. So we'll be right back. And hello and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix. With me, my wonderful co-host,
Stephen the Medium.
And we have a wonderful guest, Steve Katsourenis, who is the chair of the Provincetown Board of Health, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and an advocate for the LGBTQ community. And today we're celebrating Pride Month, and the subject of our show today is Fight for Pride, how respect and determination can transform a community. And Steve, welcome back.
Thank you.
And the title of the show was the result of a conversation that you had with my assistant, and she said to me, there's something about this that is really meaningful to Steve. So I want to know, how do you define that fight for pride, and what does respect and determination to transform our community mean to you?
Well, so going back to what we were just talking about, you have to constantly defend your rights. The idea, I think, that we had that we would accomplish a set of rights and that would be established and that people wouldn't question it, that was something that has proven not to be true. So
yes,
we have to constantly be vigilant about what it means to define and protect our rights. And I think we do it in both routine ways, and I think we do it in revolutionary ways. So the routine ways are, you just show up as a good member of your community and citizen, and you participate. So my husband Brendan Quesnell and I are very lucky that we've been able in Provincetown to participate in town government at levels that I never really, fully expected to. So I'm the chair of the Board of Health. He's currently the acting chair of the Planning Board. I was recently the Airport Commission chair at the same time. We both serve he's on the Recreation Commission, and we put our talents into making our community better. And we don't do it just for the GLBT community, right? We do it for the whole community. But it's part of the building that fabric and weaving our GLBT selves into the fabric of the community so that we are not able to be separated from the whole community. And Provincetown is easy because we're probably a majority of the community. But in places like Boston and Washington, D.C., and even in rural Mississippi, where gay people are there, they need to be part of the community, and they need to show up and participate, and they need to use their voices to speak out. Harvey Milk famously said that the only way we're going to win this fight for equal rights is if everyone knows you're gay. And I think the sort of modern caveat to that is, and you've got to do good in your community, right? People have to be like, that's a great chair of the Board of Health. And the fact that I'm gay is important to who I am, but it's not how I do my job. It has almost nothing to do with my job, but it has everything to do with who I am. And so I bring it with me to the job, and I do a great job. And I think that's how GLBT community people are able to defend and define our rights in ways that make them American rights. So, in the beginning, one of the challenges we always faced was, people who didn't want us to have equal rights would define them as special rights. And from the beginning, we had to say, no, I don't want special rights. I want the same rights that you have. I want to get married. I want to own a home. I want to not be fired from my job because of my sexuality or my marital status. So, these are the basic civil rights that every citizen should have, and we should have them just as much. And that's what I see as the challenge, and I think the antidote is just hard work and showing up as a meaningful member of your community.
I love what you said, and I heard loud and clear, just show up as a gay man. And for me, one of the things that I'll be honest with you, this is something that has taken me a lot of practice and years to get comfortable with myself. But one of the things that I think it's really important, I show up. I introduce myself and Stephen as my husband, and often straight people are very uncomfortable with that. And they'll say things like, "Oh, your partner." No, he's not my partner. He's my husband. And to me, that is a way of showing up, really correcting people in the moment, in real time, because just because you're uncomfortable, that's for you to deal with. Now, I can show up. I can be very respectful, by the way. I don't do this in a way that is, shoving, my beliefs into anyone's face. But it is really being very straightforward as I show up in my everyday life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly the way you do it. It's just the quiet part of being gay and being in public that doesn't require you to do anything more than that.
That's awesome. Stephen, do you have any questions, comments for Steve?
Yeah, I think right now it's probably the most crucial part of this conversation, and Steve, what you're saying, for all of us in this community to do, and I think in the correct way, but with the current status of the Supreme Court. I mean, this morning I read Thomas is already talking about looking at the opinion of same-sex marriage, and that's on the forefront, or at least some of them are going to want to do that, and to do exactly what happened with Roe versus Wade. So it's something right now that I think we have to be vigilant and just do whatever we can to do exactly what you said, Steve, and make sure that we don't go backwards, that we keep moving forward.
Steve, have you ever given up? Felt like giving up?
So I think sometimes it does feel daunting, but I'm one of those people that I'm sort of I'm like Winston Churchill when it comes to this sort of thing, which is never surrender, never give up. I'm an optimistic person. I believe that if you do the right thing, and you treat people respectfully, and it's crucial in this too, that we treat people that don't agree with us with respect. And I know social media has made it very easy for people to get laughs out of taking cheap shots at your opponents. But I think we have to really understand that people who don't agree with us have sincere views and try to look for where there's common ground. And one of the things that I've been saying throughout the last 5 years is, as Americans, we have more in common than we don't. And we've allowed ourselves to focus on the places we don't agree. And if we can all look for the things that we do agree on, we can find there's a lot of common ground. And there are going to be differences, right? There have to be in a democracy. It's not a democracy if you don't have differences of opinion and you aren't able to express them. But to do it respectfully, and that means I want to be treated respectfully by people that don't think gay people should be allowed to be married. I have to treat them respectfully in return, even though I vehemently disagree with them. And so, we have to, and I say this in light of all of the shootings, but we have to de-weaponize our politics to say, first, I exist, and I have a right to exist, and I believe I'm entitled to civil rights. Let's look for where we have common ground, and let's look for ways. One of the things that's been lost in all of this is people who don't agree that we should have equal rights, they're inconsistent in their views. They believe that people should have equal rights, and they say, yes, I believe in the part of of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution that says that, but then I don't think this group should have it. And it's not consistent. It's not respectful. So there are times when you want to give up. I try not to let that fester for long, and I try to be positive and optimistic. And the other thing, and this is something I learned when we were buying the inn, there were a lot of roadblocks. We'd never owned a business like this before. We'd never really owned a business before. And so we were going through the process of applying for loans and trying to get the financing in place and selling whatever properties we had in order to do that. And Brandon just looked at me one day and he said, I'm so concerned that we're not going to get this across the line. And I said, you need to believe in the ultimate inevitability of this. And so that's something that worked for us then, and it's stuck with me ever since. So when I look at problems and I think that I should throw my hands up in the air, I just say, no, right is going to win in the end, and I'm not going to give up.
I love it. That's really what, I really do believe that's really what life is all about. In the face of whatever circumstances, never, ever, ever give up. Now, I recently had an experience, and I'm listening to you, and I so agree. We have to be respectful, but it's really hard when we get hijacked by the conversation when what is being said really, really matters. There's so much at stake for us. How would you, and this is based on a personal interaction I have with someone, actually happened to be a close friend and a business colleague. How would you respond to somebody who says to you, why are you people, meaning the LGBT community, making a big deal about the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida? How would you
Mhm.
respond to that?
Well, so what I would do is make sure that and this has been the hardest thing in the last 5 years, let's make sure that we are agreeing on what the actual facts on the ground are, right? So, and that's one of the problems is that that bill doesn't exactly say "don't say gay." It's just been labeled that way. So you have to kind of go back and unpack it a little and figure out what does it actually say. And what it says is actually something that Putin's Russia has implemented in his country, which is to not do anything to promote the awareness of being gay, and that's where the problem. And you may not be able to agree with this person on, it, but at least come to a respectful understanding of what do you disagree about. And one of the memes that circulated around this, I think, is interesting, is the idea that it's about what teachers are saying in the classroom is how I think people on the conservative end of the spectrum want to portray it, and it comes back to what I said earlier. I am always going to be gay. Whatever I do, wherever I go, however I am, if I'm eating spaghetti, I'm a gay person eating spaghetti. If I'm a school teacher and I'm teaching school, I'm a gay person teaching school. And to say I can't bring my authentic self to school, if other teachers are talking about their family, how can I not talk about mine? And if there's a student in the classroom who has two daddies, how does that child not talk about that? So, it's a part of it, and this is the part where you probably reach the like crunch of disagreement is, I think authentic people should show up and tell their true stories and be who they are, and I accept them for that. If your father, if someone I'm talking to's father is a member of the Ku Klux Klan, well, then they are a member of the Ku Klux Klan. I don't think that I think it's shameful, but I think that they should be allowed to be who they are. And I can't say gay people should show up, but people who hold political views I don't agree with should not show up. And so it's hard, but it's all back to that notion of trying to find where there is common ground, and then identifying where there's not agreement, but being respectful around. You're asking gay people to become invisible, and we respectfully refuse to do that. And this is why. And this is
Yes.
why. You can also say, I think the reason why you want us to be invisible is because you would like to minimize our presence in society. And I don't want to do that. It's the same way that people who are on our side of the spectrum, who are irreligious, often want to minimize Christianity in the public sphere. And I understand where they're coming from. But those people have a right to their view, and they have a right to exist in the public sphere, and they have a right to express their views. Today, they're a majority of the Supreme Court. So we have to deal with that reality. And, like I said, find the common ground, or at least find the common understanding of the facts, if that's possible. And that's been the challenge, right? We don't have a common understanding of the facts. And when we don't have that, it's very hard to have a logical and respectful discussion about anything because we have completely different visions of what has happened in the last decade.
Agreed. Agreed. Stephen, anything else you want to add?
I think we're going to take a break.
We do have to take a break. So, Steve, hang in there. We're going to come back. I want to talk about how your business is really helping your local community. But we do have to take a break. So, hang in there. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex. With me, my wonderful co-host,
Steven is here.
Steven, the medium, is here. Steelex here for the remaining of the hour. Today, we're celebrating Pride Month, and the subject of our conversation is the fight for pride, how respect and determination can transform a community. And we have somebody that knows a little something about respect, determination, and transforming a community. That's our friend Steve Katsurinis, who happens to be the chairman of the Provincetown Board of Health, a business owner, and a very successful entrepreneur. Welcome back, Steve.
Thank you.
So, Steve, I know you and your husband, Brandon, have three very successful businesses in Provincetown, and you started your businesses in 2013. So I'm curious, a couple of things. How did you maneuver COVID when it hit Provincetown, and what did you do to survive this pandemic as a business?
Well, I was wearing two hats. So I was wearing the hat of a business owner, and I brought, obviously, that perspective to the other job, which is chair of the Board of Health. We're very fortunate in Provincetown that from the very beginning, our business community and our public health community were aligned and were working together to try to make sure that we were positioned as best we could to try to deal with what was happening. And I think our town did a really good job of trying to find appropriate ways to respond to the epidemic and ultimately the pandemic by putting in place measures which ultimately, so we were like days ahead of the governor in almost everything. We declared a state of emergency 3 days before the governor did and started to take action. We put a mask mandate in place in our town about 5 days before the governor did statewide. So we were ahead of that. And of course, we had a very high vaccination rate. As a business owner, I was focused on how to protect my staff and how to protect our customers. And I'm not apologetic about the fact that I put my staff's well-being first, because we recognize that, first of all, finding good workers in Provincetown is difficult any year. Finding good and loyal workers and keeping them safe and healthy through a pandemic is crucial. And it tightened our relationships with us and our coworkers on our team by doing the things we did. But we didn't open when we first could because we weren't confident that it would keep people safe. We did regular testing. Of course, we implemented provisions. We took our staff and got them vaccinated. And some of them were a little skeptical about the vaccine, but they trusted us, and they trusted Brandon and me when we said, this is the best thing you can do for yourself. And the risks are far outweighed by the benefits. And they did. All of our staff last year in 2021 were completely vaccinated. And as a result, we never had any days where we had to close the restaurant after we finally reopened because of COVID illness. And that's not to say nobody got COVID. People did, but we were able to protect them, isolate them, make sure they stayed home, and got proper treatment, and then ultimately were able to return. And but the town was really challenged by this. You know, you may recall it was about a year ago at this very moment that we were about to experience the Delta explosion in P-Town, and we ended up, and we're a town with 2,200 residents, and of course, many, many thousands who come to visit. But there were over 10,000 cases ultimately linked to having been in Provincetown at some point or having gotten COVID from somebody who was in Provincetown last June, July. So we had both a PR problem and we had a public health problem at the same time. Yes. And the public health problem we knew how to handle because we'd already had a year's experience with it. The PR problem was a bigger challenge. And I think we did as good as we could with it. And the main thing there was we just were honest. We told people what had happened. We told people what they needed to do. And we made sure that we didn't try to pretend like it didn't happen here, which I think is what, some people's instincts are, is to sort of go like, well, you can't prove you got it here. Well, look, we have a lot of cases here. And people who were here and went home with it got it here. So let's get them treatment. Let's get them protection. Let's try to learn from this. But the Delta thing was very concerning because in part it also had to deal with the fact that a lot of the people who got the Delta variant were getting it in, sexual activities. So even though it's not a sexually transmitted infection per se, the sex was a component of the transmission, and we didn't want to hide from that either. So we owned that, and we told the New York Times and the Boston Globe kind of what had happened, and and we thought it was important that people not be ashamed for having sex when the CDC and the State Department of Public Health said that if you're vaccinated, it's safe to engage with people. And so people did. And, then Delta showed up and people got sick. And, I had one person who called me was in Washington, D.C. and had been here and said, you're the chair of the Board of Health and you keep telling people this is mild. It's not mild. And I said, I hear you. It's mild because you're not in the hospital. And he said, well, that's not my definition of mild. I said, fair enough. But, people got really sick. And we had to protect people. We had to understand what happened. And the CDC ultimately was very appreciative of the way that especially gay men contact traced with each other in order to put together a full picture of how this had spread. And like I said, sex was a component of it, and we didn't hide from that. We didn't shrink from accepting that was the way that a lot of the cases were transmitted. And that allowed us to find people who might not know they were infected and and make sure that they were getting treatment if they needed it. So it was a exciting and terrible time all at the same time.
And as a business owner, how have you support, or how do you support and help the local community?
Well, so the first thing that you have to do is be a good business owner, meaning be ethical in the way you treat your staff and the way you treat your customers. So, if you're going to have policies in place regarding mask wearing or regarding vaccinations, then you have to fully disclose that, I think, and let people make choices. One of the interesting changes that occurred really around the end of our Delta wave here in Provincetown was everybody in the public policy realm, sort of the chair of the select board and their select board in our town, as well as our state senator and state representative. We all had a discussion and said we really need to move into a harm reduction model, right? We need to make sure that people have the information so they can make informed choices, and then they make the best choice for them. And so that means telling businesses aggressively, if you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine. But if people want to come into your business and wear a mask, you need to respect them doing that. And if you're a business owner and you require people to wear masks, people need to come in and wear masks. It doesn't matter where they're from or whether this is what they expect. You have a right to demand that people wear a mask. And so creating that space to put it in individuals' hands to make choices with full information was an important development for us. It was something we still follow. And now we are facing down the prospect of monkeypox, which is, again, not a sexually transmitted infection, but the way it's actually being transmitted now, there is often a sexual component to it. And we're going to see many more cases in the coming weeks in Massachusetts and around the country. And we face the same challenge here, which is how do we tell people what the problem is, tell them what to look for, tell them what to do to protect themselves, and then give them the freedom to make their choices accordingly. And that's what we're doing, but it's tough. And like I said, we're going to see many more cases of monkeypox than we are seeing right now.
Well, listen, we've come to the top of the hour. Of course, we could use another hour, so this is an opportunity for me to let you know that this is an open invitation, and we love to have you again, and we can pick any subject, and I'm sure it's going to be fascinating for our listeners. But before I let you go, though, Provincetown, of course, relies on tourism from all over the world. But what would you tell somebody, our show is heard through, we got listeners from anywhere across the country and the world. So somebody who's never been to Provincetown, what would you tell them, and how would you entice them to come visit us?
Well, I would tell them that we have the most amazing nightlife and dining experiences. The beaches and the dunes are unparalleled. Whale watching is an amazing experience out of Provincetown. And or you can just come here and read a book and sit on the beach and do nothing. So there's as much as you want or as little as you want, but excellent opportunities for entertainment and for ways to relax here. And it should be, if someone hasn't been to Provincetown before, they need to come and check it out.
Absolutely. Yes, Stephen and I, second and third, all of the above. And Steve, if people want to learn more about you, more about your businesses, they want to come visit, how can they find you?
So we're on Instagram and Facebook, of course. The restaurants are Yokeria, which is YOLQUERIA, and Mediterranean. None of these are easy, right? MEZZTRRANEAN. And those are the two restaurants. 8 Dyer Hotel, which is the number 8, DYER.com. That's our website. So you can check out any of those. They're all interlinked on the internet. Of course, like I said, Instagram, Facebook. And we'd love to have people check out more about us and understand us. Our restaurant, Mediterranean, opened last year. New concept, small sharing plates, Mediterranean-style food. And this year, we won gold for the Outer Cape Best Ethnic Restaurant. So my husband is so thrilled that people are loving his dinner concept.
Fabulous. And you do have the best breakfast brunch in town, hands down.
Well, thank you.
Listen, Steve, we are so thrilled that you took the time, that you share your time and attention with us so generously. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you very soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And we've reached the top of the hour. This is the end of our show. Stephen, what do you think?
It was amazing.
It was amazing. He's amazing. We love Steve. We love Brandon. And how can people find you, Stephen?
Just by Stephen the Medium.
Just by Stephen the Medium. And you can find me at Coach Elix anywhere on social media. So that's it. We'll see you guys very soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks.